go. All right, I see by the clock on the wall and my cell phone at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, April 14th, and I hereby call the regular meeting of the Citrus Heights Planning Commission to order. Mr. Van Duker, would you please give us the Pledge of Allegiance?
All are able, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Kinderwater is not present. Commissioner Kaufman.
Here.
Commissioner Al-Rawi.
Here.
Commissioner Van Duker.
Here.
Commissioner Usick.
Here.
Vice Chair Flowers is not present. Chair Sheeler.
Here.
Thank you.
It's now time for the consent calendar. We have one item on the consent, which is the minutes from February 24th. Does anyone want to discuss the minutes at all? Do I hear a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Okay. Commissioner Kaufman and Mr. Utzig, first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now it's time for public comment. Anyone that's here that would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, would you, hopefully you filled out a speaker slip and turned it in up at the desk. And do we have any slips?
We do not.
Okay. So, on to the next item. The next item is the Gateway Activation Project.
Thank you, Chair Sheeler and Planning Commission, Casey Kempenar, your Community Development Director here tonight. I'm joined by Allison Bermudez, our Senior Planner, and Leslie Bloomquist, our City Engineer. This was a tag team project between General Services and Community Development. It affects mobility and traffic and transportation, so we're collaborating on this one together. It's an exciting project. Tonight, the purpose of tonight is to present the GAP project, which is the Gateway Activation Plan. And then your recommendation tonight would be passed on to City Council, amending the Bikeway Master Plan, Pedestrian Master Plan, and General Plan Bikeway Map. Those are the three maps that have all things trails and bikes in them. And then also recommend the council adopt the environmental document, in this case, Mitigated Negative Declaration for the California Environmental Quality Act. So tonight we'll talk a little bit about the why of the project, why the GAP project, share some of the objectives and location, go over some of the existing conditions, look at the options that we're recommending, the community feedback, staff recommendation, and then we'll have the your direction will go to the council at the end of the day. So first of all, the GAP is Gateway Activation Plan. It's a little bit of a play on words because there's a gap in the network too. We have the Old Auburn Road coming in, trail coming in, and the Electric Greenway coming in, and there's a gap between those two things. And then in Roseville, the Dry Creek Greenway. So it closes a gap, but it's also a gateway into the city from Roseville. So the city's spent a lot of effort over the last several years on building community connection. You've seen the success of the Arcade Cripple Creek Trail. We're doing a lot more community events and gathering opportunities and really working to improve the quality of life. So a while back, former Assembly Member Ken Cooley saw what we were doing related to trails and thought that we could use some help in helping expand and tie it to our regional networks, and authorized a congressional appropriation, state appropriation for this purpose. And so this money was set aside specifically to get this project as close as we can to construction, and then we would pursue grant funding later on to actually construct the project. So been working on that ever since, and it's really leveraging of a map in a minute. I'll show you how it leverages our neighboring and future regional trail investments that are planned. So there's really two objectives. The first and foremost is the trail connectivity. So as I mentioned, we have the existing many of you probably walked on the Old Auburn Multi-Use Trail. That was our first trail in the city. Then we have the recently completed Arcade Cripple Creek Trail. And then Roseville is in the process of building the Dry Creek Greenway, which will end up at our city limits. But in addition to that, we know and we hear from the community that there are challenges on Old Auburn Road for drivers, pedestrians, and bicyclists. We've heard there's speeding challenges. There's an interesting double stop sign situation going on out there. A number of challenges that aren't working as well. So while we're looking at this corridor, in order to make the trail connections work, we wanted to make sure, hey, we should address the ongoing existing conditions out there too while we're at it, and try to make things better, and it makes things better for drivers and for pedestrians and bicyclists. Excuse me. So you can see on the map here, this is the northeastern portion of the city here. So just up here is Roseville, so we're just on our gateway. The orange line represents the project limits of the Gateway Activation Project. So on the south here, you have off Wachtel Way is Arcade Cripple Creek Trail, and that goes all the way to Sunrise Marketplace. We have the Old Auburn Trail here that just ends at Robert Creek Court. And then Roseville's Dry Creek Greenway, they're building a phase that ends about here, and they're planning a future phase here, but you can ultimately take that all the way to downtown Roseville someday. And there's a bigger regional plan that connects to the east to Folsom Lake through the American River Trail, and then the Dry Creek Greenway keeps going on to the west. Ultimately, they both connect downtown, so the vision is to have a 70-mile loop that connects throughout the region, and we'd be right in the middle of that. So this plays a really important role in connecting those regional trail visions. And then the region has larger plans to connect trails further off towards Lake Tahoe and beyond. So there's a lot of momentum on this, and so this project plays a really key role at filling that gap and connecting our existing trails to that future network. And I'll turn it over to Leslie to talk about the project challenges and some of the roadway side of things.
Good evening. So the current project scope began with a look at several main items, the first being how to safely connect the various trails. The Old Auburn Road Multi-Use Trail we know ends on the north side of Old Auburn Road at Robert Creek Court, and the Dry Creek Greenway, a future trail planned by City of Roseville, will be ending on the south side of Old Auburn Road, just outside the city limits. So we were looking at where's the best place to cross Old Auburn Road, where should the trail be located, what are some of the right-of-way constraints that are present. We were also taking a look at the existing roadway traffic and pedestrian safety as part of this. As Casey mentioned, we've heard for a long time about some operational frustrations on the corridor, but at the same time, we don't want to just go and add more capacity or add more lanes. We don't want to increase the number of cars that are coming through here. So we wanted to make sure that we took a really detailed look at this. So speaking of traffic, Old Auburn and Wachtel are both heavily used corridors. There's approximately 14,000 vehicles per day on the portion of Old Auburn Road between Wachtel and the city limits. And about 10,600 of those continue or come from Old Auburn Road to the west, and about 6,700 vehicles per day on on Wachtel Road as it approaches Old Auburn Road. And this slide shows where those vehicles are coming and going. About 25% of the cars on this portion of Old Auburn Road neither start nor stop in Citrus Heights. They are primarily using Citrus Heights as a cut through to get from one location to another. And those 25%, you can see where they are ultimately entering and exiting the city before or after they pass through this project corridor location. So about 8% of them are coming or going on Wachtel to the south. 6% continue down Old Auburn, all the way out to the county limits, and the rest of them on various arterials throughout the city. So if you've driven on Old Auburn Road, you're probably familiar with the vehicle queuing that currently happens due to the two stop signs that are there. In the AM peak period, that eastbound queue backs up significantly, and in the PM peak period, the queue appears in the westbound direction. So in addition to the trail crossing, we've also heard from residents in this area about the lack of pedestrian and bicycle connectivity for the neighborhood on the south side of Old Auburn. The only way in and out of this neighborhood for all of these users is via Argo Drive. However, there's no crossing on Old Auburn Road at this location, and there's no sidewalk on Old Auburn Road to allow them to walk to one of the existing safe crossings. So it basically renders this neighborhood isolated when it comes to both bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Currently, it's over 2,400 feet, almost a half a mile to the nearest signalized crossing of Old Auburn Road at Wintergreen or Twin Oaks Avenue, and just under 1,000 feet over to the stop sign at Walktel Way. So instead, what pedestrians are doing, as you can see in the picture on the upper right, is they're currently running across Old Auburn Way at Argo Drive due to the lack of facilities that are located here. So we did want to look at that as part of the scope of the GAP project as well, to evaluate and determine a safe crossing for the pedestrians of this neighborhood to access the existing trail, Old Auburn Trail on the north side of the road, schools on the north side of Old Auburn Road, as well as over and connecting to the Arcade Cripple Creek Trail just around the corner from them on Walktel Way. However, other concerns also came from nearby residents in the Argo Drive neighborhood as well over the past few years. We also heard concerns, a lot of concerns about speeding on Old Auburn at this intersection, vehicles doing donuts and burnouts in the middle of this intersection at night, as well as just vehicles in general having difficulty turning left into and out of this intersection because of the queuing that backs up from the all-way stop and the speed of the vehicles on the roadway. So this kind of summarized the problems or the issues that we were looking at as we started to delve into this project. So various treatments were evaluated for the intersections within the project limits, as well as the proposed trail alignment was evaluated. Ultimately, the preferred alternatives, including a Class 1 trail extension on Old Auburn Road from Robert Creek Court, where it currently ends today, to the east at the city limits, where it will ultimately connect to that Dry Creek Greenway. The preferred crossing of the trail was determined to be at Argo Drive. On Walktel Way, a Class 4 trail is proposed on the west side of the road, connecting the Old Auburn Trail to the recently built Arcade Cripple Creek Trail, and 3 roundabouts are proposed at the intersections of Argo, Walktel Way, and the Linda Creek Court Oakwood Hills Circle intersection. So looking specifically at the intersection of Argo Drive, on the screen now is a rendering of the proposed roundabout at this intersection. So I just wanted to pause here a little bit and talk about some of the benefits of roundabouts and why it was selected as the preferred alternative for this intersection. Roundabouts inherently bring safety benefits to the intersections in which they're installed. Many of these benefits that they bring address the specific complaints and concerns we had heard for this intersection. First and foremost, it would add the pedestrian crossings, 2 of them to be exact, 1 on either side of the intersection. There would also be crossings on the side streets, so 4 crossings altogether at this roundabout. It would lower vehicular speeds. The circular design of the roundabouts forces drivers to slow down, making crashes less likely and less severe when they do occur. There's fewer conflict points in a roundabout, meaning there's less locations where the vehicles cross paths or have the potential to collide. That's why there is a reduced crash risk at a roundabout versus a traditional intersection. Roundabouts also force everyone to drive in a circular nature, so you don't have the potential for the head-on crashes, the right angle or the left turn crashes, which are the crashes that typically result in the higher severity of injury. And roundabouts provide a potential location for beautification or potentially integration of art or landscaping in that center area. They do allow continuous movement of cars. Cars can still navigate their way through the intersection after yielding, keeping operations moving. It reduces delay rather than stopping at a stop sign or a traffic signal. If the intersection is clear, they can yield and then continue on. And with a roundabout at this intersection, there would no longer be that large open space in the middle for donouts or burnouts to happen in the middle of the night or any time of the day. But roundabouts do take up a larger footprint than a traditional stop-controlled or signalized intersection. So as you can see, this roundabout does fit here. This is actually sized for this location, but it would require small right-of-way takes on either 4 corners. So moving to the eastern end of the corridor, you may be familiar with the dual all-way stops. This is at Walktel and the Oakwood Hills Linda Creek Court intersection. These two intersections were evaluated in tandem due to their close proximity, as any treatment selected at one of the intersections would impact the operations of the adjacent intersection. So this was supposed to be a micro simulation of the AM and PM peak periods. I thought it was going to play, Casey, so my apologies on that. But what this kind of shows, it's a snippet of the micro simulations. You can see the small vehicles that are shown on the roadway, and you can see it in the AM peak period, them traveling in the eastbound direction, backing up all the way off screen, and then in the PM peak period, in the westbound direction, kind of going up and around the bend there. Oh, now they're playing. So this is the AM side is now running, so you can see the queue is backing up all the way in the eastbound direction off the screen. We know from visits in the field that sometimes it backs up all the way to the Big Oaks Mobile Home Park. And now the PM peak period is going, and here you can see it backing up all the way from Wachtel up and around the curve, all the way up sometimes to the Kirby intersection in the city of Roseville. So now looking at the Wachtel Way intersection, we did look at various alternatives here. We looked at keeping it as is, different scenarios involving roundabouts and traffic signals, but ultimately the roundabout ended up the preferred alternative for this intersection as well. This roundabout has all the same benefits as the one that I described at Argo Drive. It reduces vehicular travel speeds, enhances the pedestrian crossings, enhances operations, it has the potential for beautification and art, and it will reduce crash potential as well as crash severity. In addition to the benefits previously discussed, roundabouts have a few more benefits for intersections, especially when they're replacing all-way stops. They also reduce gas consumption, they reduce wear and tear on vehicles, and they reduce noise. Whereas previously cars were having to stop every time and speed up again, now they would just have to yield. So those are some of the added benefits when you remove a stop sign. However, similar to the Argo Drive intersection, there are some right-of-way impacts here, and we have identified those on the design and preferred alternative. So now you can see the AM and PM micro simulations for the alternatives with the roundabouts in place. What you don't see on here now is the lengthy queues in either direction. Because the roundabouts allow that continuous movement, those queues are significantly reduced in both the AM and PM peak periods. Therefore, they can operate and accommodate more vehicles per hour, which is why we don't see the same queuing here with the roundabouts that we do with the all-way stops. So the third and final proposed roundabout is at the Linda Creek Oakwood Hills intersection. This intersection brings all those same benefits as previously described. There's also some minor right-of-way impacts here as well, very similar to the other two intersections. And on Wachtel Way, this is a much easier corridor to solve for the bicycle connection. There's a large open right-of-way on the west side of Wachtel Way. You can see on the bottom right photo. In addition, the city's jurisdictional boundaries goes right down the middle of Wachtel Way. So the east side of Wachtel is actually owned and maintained by Sacramento County, the west side of city of Citrus Heights. So by keeping all of the improvements on the west side of Wachtel Way, this really makes it a lot easier for the city as that's in our own existing right-of-way. So this map shown on your screen now, north is to the right. The RK Cripple Creek Trail currently ends right here. We installed some on-street parking with the RK Cripple Creek Trail construction. So the trail was actually along the side of the road here, and this Wachtel Way would continue. We'd have the multi-use trail on the kind of open space of the corridor, as well as the buffered bike lane would remain on Wachtel Way itself. There's a few driveways that we would cross as we travel north to Old Auburn Road, and those would be treated with high visibility markings.
Great, thanks, Leslie. So this was obviously you heard the project objectives, and we wanted to make sure that we're creating a solution that fits with the community's needs and desires. So we've done a lot of outreach as part of this, and it started with a project website, which you can see there. It's continuously updated. We had our first workshop about this time last year, and we said, these are the options we're looking at. What do you think? We had a good turnout, and I'll go through each of these a little bit more. I have a couple more slides on each of these. We had a trail pop-up. We did a survey. We got some direction from the city council. We've had direct conversations with those intersection property owners who are the most impacted that we'd have to acquire right away from. We had last month we had a community update meeting, and then here we are today. So we're on tail end of our community engagement portion of this work. So you can see here, excuse me, this is the meeting at Big Hope Mobile Home Park, so right across from where the trail is located. We had a great turnout. Over 48 people attended. We had boards where people could make comments and share their thoughts and look at different ideas and provide their feedback. And then in June, it was a warm day. We had along the trail opportunity for people that were out on a Saturday to come check it out and share their feedback too. We had a lot of folks stop by, really interested in to see how the trails will continue in the future. Survey results, we did an online survey, and a lot of feedback related to the need to increase safety. That's the yellow bar there, the highest, and then the second highest was trail connectivity was a priority for the community. So you can see that we're hitting all the marks that we were selecting for feedback from. And this slide talks about, this just shows an example like Argo Drive. We were looking at different options, and you can see it was pretty split between a roundabout and pedestrian hybrid beacon, but for the reasons that Leslie mentioned, the roundabout actually performs better and works better in this situation. So that was ultimately what the council directed us to move forward with. And same thing with Wachtel, the roundabout was the preferred approach. So we shared what we had heard at that point from the community with the council, and we had a lot more work to do, but before we got too far down the environmental review process, we wanted to share that with the council to get their feedback, because it is a big change from going from no roundabouts to 3 roundabouts, and even though that's the best solution, we wanted to get some feedback there. And walking through a very similar presentation as we've done tonight, they agreed and directed us to proceed with the 3 roundabouts and do the environmental review that we're doing now, as well as the trail connections, et cetera. So we refined, we sharpened our pencils and did some refining, and we had more detailed plans and shared that with the community too in March. We had about 32 people come, take a look at the plans, lots of excitement and hope for the future, and it was a really good turnout. So what we've heard throughout the engagement is that improving safety is really important. Trail connections are important in slowing traffic. So as Leslie described, actually the trail part's the easy part. The roundabouts are the part that help do these other things. And so the roundabouts improve safety, they slow traffic down, they eliminate some of the problems such as donuts and other things that we've been having troubles with. People are generally excited about the project. Some folks, particularly those intersection property owners that we would require to obtain right away from, they had some concerns, and we've met with those that had concerns and walked them through what that looks like. I think roundabouts are always a little bit polarizing, but overall I think a lot of folks see the benefit and understand, but there were some mixed feelings along the way. There's a lot of benefits of this project as Leslie presented. Improved traffic, you saw those micro simulations. Right now those queues back up. Now that's a constant stream of movement, although a slower, safer stream of movement, and improved bicycle pedestrian safety. So right now it's really hard to get across those intersections, even the stop sign intersections. Sometimes people don't stop and things like that, so they're a little bit difficult. So the roundabouts help solve that. I think it's a great opportunity to, is it a gateway from Roseville? It's a great opportunity. As you have a roundabout, you can do art, or you can do a sign, welcome to Citrus Heights, or you can do landscaping. So there's an opportunity to make a there as you come in from Roseville. Roundabouts do have a lower maintenance cost too. And then, as Leslie spent a fair amount talking about, reduced crash severity. I'll turn over to Allison to talk about CEQA.
Thank you, Casey. Now we're going to move into the specific environmental compliance framework that guided this project. To ensure that we were meeting our regulatory responsibilities, the project is governed by the California Environmental Quality Act, or what we call CEQA. The first step in that process was conducting a comprehensive initial study. This preliminary evaluation allowed us to look at the project's potential footprint across several categories, from air quality, biological resources, traffic, and noise. The goal of the study was to determine if any aspect of their work could result in a significant impact to the environment. While our initial study did identify some potential areas of concern, it also showed us that these impacts could be successfully addressed through proactive design changes and standard protections. Because we did identify some of these manageable impacts, we move forward with what's called a mitigated negative declaration. This mitigated negative declaration, what we call an MND for short, is a specialized document used when an initial study finds potential impacts that can be reduced to a less than significant level through specific mitigation measures. Essentially, this MND is our formal statement to the public and regulatory agencies that this project, as planned and revised, will not have a substantial negative effect on the environment. It provides us a transparent and streamlined pathway to compliance. By adopting this document, we're legally committing to the project modifications and the protections that we ensure our development is a responsible addition to the community. Of course, those promises only matter if they're followed, which brings us to the enforcement piece. And the heart of the MND is the mitigation and monitoring plan. This MMRP is our checklist that we've used that bridges the gap between what we've planned and the construction. It outlines the specific actions we must take, whether that's daily dust control, shielding construction noise, or conducting pre-construction surveys, ensuring that our commitment to the environment is followed. To give you a clearer picture of how that works, all the items on the other slide were reviewed and analyzed through that MND, and the ones on the screen are areas where mitigation is being performed to make sure that everything is reduced to less than significant. Example, air quality and dust control. We use basic construction emission controls to avoid significant air quality impacts. Most of those would occur during the construction phase, not necessarily with the project, but most of the impacts occur as the project's being constructed. So air quality would be from the construction equipment. So specific measures are put in place to make sure that they are not impacting the air quality or to the least amount possible. There's biological protections. We want to protect the wildlife in the trees, so we conduct wildlife surveys, and depending on the time of year when the project is constructed, there may be bird nesting surveys that are completed to ensure that we're protecting our biological resources. Cultural resources, because this area is rich in history prior to construction, the construction crews go through a cultural resource training that makes them aware of resources that could be in the surrounding area, and if something is found, then the work stoppage occurs and proper measures are taken. And then noise, we limit construction hours, the types of equipment to reduce the noise impacts that come typically with construction. Every one of these actions is tracked in our mitigation monitoring reporting program, and that ensures that what we intend to do does occur. And then we report on those regularly to make sure that through the construction of the project, there's full compliance. So before we move forward with the MND, we're required to open it up for a 30-day public review period. For this project, the window ran from February 18th through March 19th. During this time, we did host that community meeting that Casey mentioned. It gave everyone a chance to weigh in on the document, ask questions, and share their thoughts. We've taken all the feedback from that meeting, along with any other comments that we received on this environmental document, and they are included in that final MND document that's presented to you today.
All right, so tonight, wrapping up, the Planning Commission action is to hold a public hearing, considering the MND, and then also considering amendments to the Bike Master Plan, Pedestrian Master Plan, and General Plan Bikeway Map, which is, again, essentially putting the lines from the Gateway Activation Plan on those three maps, so pretty straightforward. In terms of timeline, I find, as I've talked to community, this is one of the biggest questions, well, when's it gonna start? Well, we're in the early phases still. So on the left, you see we started this with traffic studies, community engagement, utility design, those sort of things, the preliminary stuff. And then right now, we're in the spring of 2026. We're doing project approvals, environmental reviews, so that's where we're at now. After this meeting, we'll go to the city council, and then if the city council approves it, then we're looking for money. So that can take 1 or 2 rounds sometimes. It just depends on where the state budget is, but this is the type of project the state likes to fund. We're filling a gap between us and neighboring jurisdictions, and it's an active transportation project that it would be, I think, would score really well. So we'll do that. Once we get that money, that would help with the final engineering design and then ultimately construction. So we're still several years from actually dirt moving, and it's a little bit of an undetermined time frame, but I just wanted to give the commission an update of kind of where we stand. The recommendation is before you, and I'm happy, the team here is happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you very much, staff. Great presentation. Before we have our discussion up here, I just want to remind anybody that I'm going to be opening it up for public hearing in a few minutes. So if anybody wants to speak on this project, please fill out a speaker form in the back and then pass it up here to the front, and we'll bring you up. Any questions from commissioners? No?
I have one question. It's just kind of basic. Is the Oakwood Hills intersection, does that touch Citrus Heights?
So Oakwood Hill Circle with Old Auburn Road actually meets twice. The one on the west, which is just west of Walktel Way, that intersection is fully in the city of Citrus Heights. The one on the east, where the roundabout is proposed, where it's also with Linda Creek Court, it's shared jurisdictional boundary. So the north half of Old Auburn Road there is Citrus Heights. The south half is Sacramento County.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I had a question. In the documents, there were some comment cards, and a couple of them mentioned sound barriers and the feeling that the sound barriers were insufficient. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, from a CEQA standpoint, the project complies with the noise standards. We're actually making things better, right, by not having to stop and go. So there's not a requirement for us to mitigate anything from that. We recognize that anytime you're along a busy corridor, there's going to be noise, but the city can't be responsible for building the wall to mitigate that for past challenges that have occurred with this project.
Were the owners, where the driveways are, the bike path is going to pass over, the owners of that property, were they contacted in terms of?
We've done a lot of outreach. We've done direct mailers to all the intersection and driveway property owners, as well as direct mailers to everyone within 500 feet of the corridor. So we've talked to everyone that wants to talk to us, I think, at this point.
Okay, very good. Not seeing any other questions from commissioners. I'll open the public hearing. And I have one speaker card from Ann Mastry.
Yes, correct. Thank you. May I approach?
Sure, please.
Respectful of the 3-minute. First of all, I just want to say thank you. Appreciate that the city has really taken this into consideration. It's been an ongoing issue for quite some time. I've moved into Citrus Heights, and I'm living in the home that I purchased 29 years ago. So I have seen an influx of changes, especially with traffic. I've noticed that the cars are going faster and faster. We've raised the speed limit once or twice, I believe, in Old Auburn. And I'm very happy to see that there's considerations for our development. I think we're on the south side, I'm not sure. But in any case, we do not have a sidewalk for that 2,400 feet. So there is a problem getting across. I've witnessed people playing Russian roulette trying to get across even in a wheelchair. I like the roundabout idea. I'm familiar with roundabouts. I experience roundabouts even in Ireland. I do know that traffic does not typically slow. It gives them an opportunity just to whip through faster and faster. We've got a light down at Kirby, and we don't have another signal, I think, until I don't know the name of the street down there. What is it? Crestmont? Is it? Twin Oaks. So that's about a mile stretch of cars that are just going to pick up speed and whip through these roundabouts. Coming in and out of these neighborhoods, when you have to go left, it's going to be very difficult. First, you got to clear this side that's coming at a high speed, and then you got to make the corner and then somehow merge with traffic that's already picked up speed coming from Kirby. What's the answer? I don't know. Can we put a speed bump in the roundabout? But it's got to slow traffic enough because now you've given them a pass-through that goes faster. And I think that's going to create an issue. I don't think it's going to slow them down enough. And that's my concern. The crosswalk, great idea. I appreciate that very much. Still think it may have to be a signal activation crosswalk again. I don't think they're going to take it seriously. I actually have a difficult time now getting across to get my grandson to school in the morning because traffic doesn't want to let you through. You know, you're one car, but they feel you're going to slow their day. And then coming back, I'm backed up to Big Oak, I think it is. And so I'm usually late, getting home and getting online to go to work. So I do appreciate all the thought, the planning. It's come a long way, and it's a great achievement, and I applaud you for that. I just think we need to fine-tune it. And hopefully you'll give that some consideration. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
No other comments?
I have none.
No?
Good.
Okay. I'll close the public hearing. Any final discussion amongst the council, the commissioners?
I guess, could you just speak to the comment and I mean, does this, by us approving this, does this preclude doing any of those sorts of things like putting a lighted crosswalk in or anything?
I'll take a first stab at it and then ask Leslie. So right now, this is preliminary engineering, so it's like 30% level. So we're at a level of detail where we're, pretty early, but there's opportunity for us to make changes as we're going along the way. There's more once we get into hard engineering. So let Leslie kind of continue from there.
Yes, so at the roundabouts, we do have the new crossings. We will be looking at potentially rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are the yellow flashing ones. So those are still alternatives and final design elements that are to be worked out. We are looking at the angle of deflection for the roundabouts as you come in. That's what will physically cause cars to slow down. So all those really fine details are in that next phase of engineering that will come, as Casey mentioned, once we get those grant funds, if we're selected for future funding for those.
I would note myself, I experienced a double roundabout up in Chico. The traffic study talked about Chico, and I experienced that myself, and I mean, I think we all are relatively new to roundabouts somewhat. That was my first time of ever on one road, sort of a double stacked, and they weren't that far apart, nor were they that close necessarily, but no, it worked fine. I mean, the first time you go through it, you sort of are learning a little bit and understanding what it's all about, but everybody seemed to just flow through it just fine. All right, well, do I have a motion?
I would just add, you don't have to read the whole motion. You could just say moved as shown on the screen if you so inclined, unless you want to.
Move as shown on the screen.
Second.
Do we need a roll call vote, please? No? No? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Any determination by the Planning Commission may be appealed to the City Council by filing a written notice of appeal and the appropriate filing fees with the city clerk not later than 10 calendar days after the date on which the determination is made. So this moves on to the City Council. Staff, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Next item.
Correspondence and presentations and reports from city staff. Ally, do you want to take your item first and then we do, or did you want to make your comment first or do you want to
Sure.
make it after?
We can do it now.
Okay.
I would like to invite you, we really are looking for some engagement. This is at the request of Engineer Daniel here. He really is looking for some engagement in our local hazard mitigation planning efforts. If you remember, either the last meeting or the meeting before, he gave a pretty in-depth presentation on what this plan is. We really need some public input and outreach. So if you're so inclined or know someone in your household or your business to learn more about how we're mitigating potential hazards like flood, drought, wildfires, extreme weather, we would like your engagement. They've had one meeting. I believe they have a second meeting coming up. It's scheduled for April 22nd. Daniel's happy to get you connected and give you flyer information on that meeting, should you like to participate. Also wanted to update you on, if you haven't been down Sayonara Drive lately, on the progress of the Habitat homes. The first 8 are nearing completion. Keys should be turned over to the first 8 homeowners the first part of June. So very exciting. So as you're out and about in your travels, I encourage you to drive down that street and see the changes these new homes are bringing to the streetscape of that. It's very exciting. They just completed their last round of applications for the final 8 homes, total of 26, as you recall. So hopefully within the next 2 years, all 26 homes will be occupied. So June 6th, I believe, is the date, but they will be turning over the first set of keys to the first homeowners.
Great.
And then the next item is going to be selection of chair and vice chair.
Do we want to, we have the same situation as we had the last time we met. We've had 5 as opposed to 7. Do we want to proceed?
We can proceed if you'd like. I don't, Scott Kinderwater did let Stacy know he is going to be moving, so he won't be part of it anyway, so.
Oh, okay.
And then, so yeah.
Well, all right. Would we like to do chair or vice chair first?
It's at your pleasure.
Okay. Do I hear any nominations for vice chair? I would like to nominate Scott, please.
I'll second that.
Scott Kaufman, I'm sorry. Okay.
Do I have to accept, or?
Now,
Yes,
all those in
I've been
favor?
voluntold.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Do we have a nomination for chair? I'll nominate our vice chair, Marcel Flowers. All those in favor? Or,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So Ms. Flowers is our chair for next time, and Mr. Kaufman is our vice chair. Next item?
No additional items.
Okay.
We will have a meeting on April 28th, just so you can mark it in your calendars. So April 28th will be our next meeting.
Very good. Very good. At 6:43, I call the meeting to an end. Thank you.